today's episode, we are going to start, David, with the Eastern Conference. And I think we should just start right off the bat with the big bet, with the $1,000 bet.
Yeah, that makes sense. You look at what happened in the Eastern Conference, it kind of, you saw, we were talking about this before we even jumped on the show, that I think from the Eastern perspective, like some teams made slight improvements. One team made a probably pretty sizable jump, and overall, even the top competitors, the top contenders in the conference probably stayed pat, just making moves on the fringes, not necessarily shaking things up dramatically, and maybe they don't need to because they're already strong contending teams. It's an interesting race. I don't think it's as much a foregone conclusion as it would appear too. And I think, Bet Online, they're going to do what they do. They have to place these odds, but there's a few teams out there that could either precipitously drop or make an unexpected rise into the rankings there. But it's going to be a fun race in the East.
Well, you mentioned the team that made the most substantial leap, and I do think there's really only one team in both conferences that, based on their offseason moves, have kind of moved from that middle tier in its conference to the top, like, real legit contender, like if things break right, and that's the Miami Heat.
No.
And that's because they add a guy in Kyle Lowry, which is probably the biggest player, most important player, best player, however you phrase it, to actually move teams this offseason. And then they add a guy in PJ Tucker. They shore up some of their depth and some other moves and things like that. They bring back Victor Oladipo. His health is going to be important. And then you look at some of these other guys like Max Strus and Omer Yurtseven.
Yeah. Yep.
Like dudes who had like pretty impressive summer leagues, definitely had really impressive moments in summer league. Can one of them pop? Can the KZ Okpala leap ever actually occur?
Can I just add, like we were talking about summer league, and we were talking about this last week too, but that the Heat, I know a lot of people, even casual fans, not even necessarily media members, kind of jealous of Miami's ability to just continue to find players to rise to the challenge. This is why the draft is stupid, people. Sorry, I know everybody's really excited about their draft picks, and tanking for years and years and years and creating this really losing mentality. The draft is pointless. I mean, you can continue to find a great level player even with the 61st pick in the draft. You know what I'm saying? You can continue to scout well, and as long as you develop players well, you'll be able to get some value out of them. That's my soapbox, and I'm done.
It's been your running bit for the many, many years that you and I have been podcasting together, is that you hate the draft and you wish there were no rookies in the NBA.
Absolutely.
So the Heat move up, and then the other big kind of not swing factor in that it wasn't a swing factor is that all these rumored superstar trades, Ben Simmons, Damian Lillard, Bradley Beal, never happened. Those three guys were still on their same teams. Anything can change at any moment in the NBA, but for now it looks like Damian Lillard will start the season in Portland. Bradley Beal will remain in Washington. I guess you could, and the Ben Simmons thing is still out there, but like if there was a deal that made sense, that would have already happened, right? Like we're kind of past that point, and it kind of feels like the Sixers are waiting on either Bradley Beal or Damian Lillard to decide that they don't want to be there anymore, and then maybe try to maneuver a swap for one of those guys. So everything is staying pat. Unless you view Russell Westbrook as a superstar trade, no superstar deal was made over this offseason. And so I think when
careful, you're treading on dangerous waters there.
Westbrook fans can come at me, I don't care. I've been pro the Westbrook Lakers fit more than a lot of media people. I'm just saying, not a superstar. So all that is to say that when you look at these odds, from before the offseason started and at the end, like there's been some movement, there's been some change, but really what we're talking about is Miami's the only team that's moved up into the upper tier of their conference, and everything else has kind of remained the same. We've even seen a team like the Warriors in the conference, but now that we've kind of done the overview, I really just want to know who your $1,000 bet is on the East.
Well, I could go with a homer pick here and say that, Kyle Lowry is going to be able to cement all of what Miami can do, and they're going to tie everything together, and all of a sudden they're just going to punch everybody in the mouth and be able to run the gamut through the Eastern Conference playoffs, but I don't really believe that. There's that possibility, but I'm not going to lose $1,000. Even if it's locked on money, I'm putting it on the Milwaukee Bucks. I think, to me, the most obvious choice is the Brooklyn Nets, but I have to say that with Milwaukee, one of the things that I've always maintained about like these unusual championship contenders, they're not like a super team perhaps, They're not a dynastic team. They don't seem like they're a lock to be in the finals for the next few years. You have to give that credit to Brooklyn because they've got the big three, a much bigger three than whatever big three is currently going on in Miami or Milwaukee or Los Angeles or anywhere else, because now all of a sudden everybody's got a big three. But you look at what the Nets are able to do. Yes, they're built for a more dynastic run. The Bucks, however, they have an opportunity to prove that they did belong, that they didn't just take advantage of injuries. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but that, a lot of people are discrediting their run to the finals because they took advantage of Brooklyn's injury issues. And that's my point also, is that I think Brooklyn is going to continue to have injury issues. Like, I don't wish injury on anyone, but I just think it's so unlikely that Kevin Durant can stay healthy for a prolonged period of time. Like, I don't know if Harden's injuries are going to just continue to pile up over the course of his career because of the physical toll that he's taken with the style of play that he does, where he embraces contact and free throws and everything else like that. But Durant, coming off of an Achilles tear and then having to rebuild his lower leg completely, playing a full season of basketball and being the best player in an Olympic run, that I'm not, exactly filled with confidence that he can stay healthy. So the Bucks, I think, are going to have a bigger chip on their shoulder to try and prove that they can. I think this is Drew Holiday's peak. It's going to close quickly, but I think he's playing as good as he could possibly play at this point in his career. He's a great defensive player. His offense was still a big part of Milwaukee's run. I think Giannis is going to come back, again, trying to prove and build on this really deep resume that he's already established, even at his early age. So to me, I like what the Bucks are potentially able to accomplish next season.
Yeah, and they bring back Bobby Portis. They lose PJ Tucker. They bring in Semi Ojeleye, which I guess is like a bet on, hey, maybe he could be our PJ Tucker. I still think they're a little thin in the front court, but then you just factor in Giannis, and he just covers up so much of those deficiencies in the front court. They're going to get Dante DiVincenzo back, who, of course, they didn't have for most of that playoff run. He got hurt in the first round and didn't return for them. I like the Bucks bet, and also when you look at the odds from BetOnline, Brooklyn, the prohibitive favorites, 6-5 odds, and Milwaukee, second in the East with 17-4 odds. So the difference with you putting $1,000, if you would have put $1,000 on the Nets, you would have won, and they win. That's a payout of $200. Like, you're winning $200 a game. But $1,000 on the Nets, and if they end up winning the conference, then you're getting back $4,200. That's substantially more money. So as far as just value on your bets, if you're able to get that much from a team that just won the NBA Finals, not just the conference, but just won the NBA Finals, that's a pretty nice payout, considering that with Brooklyn, you have to bet a lot more money than $1,000 to get anything of note if they end up winning the East, if that pays out for you. But with all that, so I like the Bucks bet. With all that said, maybe I'm just the guy playing it safe here. I'm putting $1,000 on. I'm putting my $1,000 bet on Brooklyn. I just think I agree with everything that you're saying. The injury stuff concerns me way more than with Milwaukee. Like, Milwaukee's stars they're durable, right? Like, they just time and time again they play. And with Brooklyn, yeah, Kevin Durant was healthy for the home stretch, but they lost James Harden. He tends to be durable though. The Kyrie Irving thing though, like, I'm just going to assume forever that he's not going to play a full season, and I'm not even counting on him to play every playoff game at this point. Like, he just doesn't stay healthy at this point in his career. And is two stars, even as good as Kevin Durant and James Harden are, good enough to basically dethrone the Bucks if Milwaukee enters that kind of series healthy? The one thing I'll say about Brooklyn is I like that they added James Johnson. I think he just fits everything that they want to do. I think the Patty Mills thing was a really good addition. No, he's not James Harden. He's not Kyrie Irving, but he helps mitigate some of that drop.
Sure.
Like, when one of those guys are out, and I say win on purpose because before, like last year, it was Tyler Johnson, and who was that guy that they brought over from Europe?
Mike James.
Yeah, like that. It was like him and Tyler Johnson. Like that's a pretty steep drop, right? Those are basically minimum guys. Patty Mills is a legit rotation player in the NBA.
With championship experience.
Yeah. Who can space the floor, and he helps you do all the things that you want to do. And then Cam Thomas, who they drafted at LSU, had a really nice summer league. Now, he's not the most efficient player, but he can go get you buckets. I know they lost Jeff Green, but net, I kind of like what the Nets did in the offseason. And if those guys can stay healthy, I still am playing it safe and putting my $1,000 on the Nets. But I like your bet with Milwaukee because and that's where my $500 goes. Is
Well, look, I had forgotten too that they did make some changes. They brought in Rodney Hood. They made that trade for Grayson Allen. They brought back George Hill. Yeah, I mean these are building out the roster. So while we saw Mike Budenholzer make the right decision this past playoff run to play his stars for more minutes and to shorten the bench a little bit, it's good to have that kind of depth because you lost DiVincenzo. And all of a sudden, you had to rely on some players like Forbes, like Pat Connaughton, and others that might have cost you a chance to succeed. It didn't, but it's always good to have that kind of depth so that you make these trades with that open mind. And I think it's a smart move there. So I like your Brooklyn pick. I mean, I think they're the clear favorites. I can't go against that choice whatsoever because they do have a great roster. They do have incredible talent there. I think they probably would have won the championship fairly easily had they been fully healthy. I don't think that's a hot take at all. Although, again, it seems like you discredit everything else that Milwaukee or any team was able to accomplish, Phoenix or anything else. But I think if Brooklyn had stayed healthy, I think it's fair to say that they probably would have just beat up every other team in the process.
And that's the thing. I think that Brooklyn is clearly the better team, but they are, when healthy, far and away the better team. I just don't see a world where anybody knocks them off. And because of that, I guess that's where I go with my $1,000 bet, is because I just have to, they were so close last year, and if they even have two of their stars healthy, I still think they beat Milwaukee. They have to basically be that much beat up again in order, a hobbled Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving not playing.
You're still this close. You're still this close.
Yeah, they're deeper than they were last year. And by the way, it's not anything against Milwaukee. It's Brooklyn right now is the only team in the league that can claim 3 top 20 players. But they're the only team that is even close to that. And maybe they might be the only team that can claim 2 top 7 players between KD. Who's your? I kind of told you my 1,000 and my 500, but who's your other 500? Is it Brooklyn?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. I drew a blank there, but yes, yeah. I mean, that's an easy money. You get a little bit extra there, maybe, perhaps. But the reality is that you're not losing money by making that pick. At least I don't think so. I mean, look, injury concerns. Yeah, it's always a possibility that injuries could change the landscape yet again. But assuming things stay healthy for now, it looks like Brooklyn's a pretty safe bet.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it comes down to. We have to place one of these bets on Brooklyn just as a hedge. But between Brooklyn and Milwaukee, if I could just put all of my money on one of those two teams who are winning the Eastern Conference, I'd probably just want to do that. You can do that. It's called a parlay. But that's not the game. All right. I want to get our final $500 bet in the Eastern Conference, David. And I do have a little bit of twist on this. I know I made up the rules of this game. I'm already going to cheat. That's going to come up next. But first, tell listeners about our sponsor.
Yeah, look, it's a problem that a lot of people don't like talking about. I've got a friend of mine who he tends to sweat a little profusely, and it's not that big a deal, but he can get a little embarrassed sometimes wearing a shirt, and all of a sudden he starts getting a little damp in his arm area there, and he doesn't feel comfortable, doesn't feel as confident as he wants to. He's a teacher too, so it's a little problematic for him. He has to go through shirts sometimes to change, or he has to wear something specific to cover up what he's got going on. And so now I introduced him to this great product. He didn't even know about it, but it's been featured on the Rachel Ray show. It's been doctor created, doctor recommended, and it works for up to 7 days. It's called Sweat Block. It's a little secret to your confidence that you can just apply on the go. You don't even really have to think about it because it's that good. You just apply Sweat Block, and you're good for a whole week. It just keeps you from sweating, and he feels so much better now. The school year started again. He can tackle it with renewed confidence. He can just focus on the job at hand, which is teaching his students, and so he doesn't have to worry about whether or not he looks silly up there or anything like that. It's just a great confidence booster. If you're worried about a meeting, or you tend to be a little nervous and maybe you start to sweat a little overtly, if you're going on a date or something like that, and you want something to help you maintain that confidence, then Sweat Block is the choice for you. So get the gift for somebody you love, or get it for yourself if you're feeling like you need a little extra help there. And you can get it today for 20% off if you go to sweatblock.com with the promo code LOCKEDON, or at Amazon or at CVS. And if you're looking to find the right person to add to your company, then there's only one choice, That's Indeed.com. When hiring gets hard, you need Indeed, the job site that makes hiring incredibly easy. You just attract, interview, and hire. In fact, with Indeed, you can do all of your hiring in one place, even interviewing. Don't just hope for your perfect candidate to find you. Indeed's hiring tools will help you to cut through the noise to hire faster and smarter. In fact, Indeed Instant Match provides a list of quality candidates whose resumes are Indeed the moment you post a sponsored job. With Indeed assessments, you can choose from 135 skills tests to help make sure that you're finding applications for people with the skills you need. Look, I've been in that position before where I need to hire somebody. I use Indeed, found the right candidate. It was a perfect setup. I really appreciated how easy they made things for me. With the assessments test that I talked about before, you can find the person that has the skills that you need to fill that posting. It makes the job so much easier, and you find the right person to fill that job. So get started right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked. Get a $75 credit only at Indeed.com/locked. Indeed.com/locked. Offer valid through September 30th. Terms and conditions do apply.
All right, back here with Locked On NBA. We're going to finish up our Eastern Conference bet. So, just to recap, we each have one $1,000 bet for each conference and two $500 bets for each conference. I used my first $1,000 bet. Matt David used his on Milwaukee, and then vice versa. I used my 500 on Milwaukee. David used his 500 on David, the value, which I can respect. But you and I both have one $500 bet left. I'm going to just tell you what I'm doing right off the bat.
All right, go for it.
I very strongly considered Miami here. 11-1 odds, $500 bet would be a pretty handsome payout. I think Miami does have what it takes to get to the finals. Now, keep in mind, this is not to win the NBA Finals. It's just to get to the NBA Finals. Winners of each conference. They added Kyle Lowry. They added PJ Tucker. They basically fill their two main needs with two proven players. They bring back Victor Oladipo on the buy low option there. If he can get healthy by the postseason, he can be a contributor for them. And like I said, I think guys like Max Strus, Omar Yurtseven, KZ Akbal, if one of them pops, I think it changes a lot of what they do. They've inked both Jimmy Butler and Duncan Robinson to extensions. So you like what they're building there. I just still think they're a little thin. I still think that they're a little old for my taste, and I just don't know what they're going to look like by the time the playoffs roll around. And they're going to need, I think, to win a whole lot of games in the regular season because home court is going to be important for them. And so I'm not going to put my $500 on Miami.
All right.
I'm going to take $400. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm already cheating. I'm going to put it on the 76ers. And this is my only bet. My bet is that something has to give with the Ben Simmons situation, and that they somehow get Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal, and that these 8-1 odds on the Sixers look a whole lot better now than they do later. Because if they do swing that kind of deal, you're not getting 8-1 odds on the Sixers. Their odds are going to look much closer to Brooklyn's than they do their own. The 8-1 odds, which right now are ranked third in the East. So I'm just going to break off this $500 bet. I'm going to take $400, putting it on the 76ers, basically betting a portion of this that trade happens. And if it doesn't happen, I'm not that worried about it because I still have $1,000 in the Nets. I'm playing it safe with that, and with the $500 on Milwaukee. And that $100 that I broke off of that $500 portion, David, I'm getting weird. I'm putting it on Atlanta.
Get the fuck.
Putting it on Atlanta, 18-1 odds. I don't know why, but if there's going to be any team that's off the board, if Trae Young takes some sort of other lead, they're really deep. I like the moves that they made over the offseason. Small moves, but meaningful ones. I'm going to throw $100 on Atlanta. 18-1 odds. If it hits, I'm making $1,700. I like that bet.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's great to cheat and bend the rules so that you can come out with a better opportunity there. Like, I don't mind those picks. I have bones to pick with both of them. I just personally, I think the Sixers situation is going to get worse before it gets better. I don't know what happens in the playoffs. I personally am going to assume they're keeping this roster as is. And if that's the case, man, that's going to be a really ugly locker room working experience there. Like, you don't want to go into work every day with people that clearly dislike you from Ben Simmons' perspective. I don't know how much more they're going to get out of Joel Embiid if he can stay healthy for another season. Maybe we're at a point collectively where we're all kind of dismiss whether or not Embiid has legitimate health questions. I'm still not at that point. I still think every time he drops the floor, he's one potential injury away from ending his career. You look at what they did with their roster. I mean, they've made some minor changes, but overall, I don't necessarily like what they've been able to accomplish in the offseason. And again, I just think it's a difficult working environment, and I don't know that Doc Rivers is going to be able to somehow miraculously find a way. Like, I feel like NBA Twitter and media members at large are kind of going the opposite direction when it comes to Doc. At one point, he was like, "Oh, he's a great coach. He gets the most out of his players," but then you kind of see the statistics of him bombing with the Clippers and not really getting the most of that really talented roster. And now he goes to Philadelphia and he kind of does the same thing. And now everybody kind of turns on him a little bit. I'm kind of.
I'm with you. Like, you swapped Dwight Howard for Andre Drummond. I think we got worse at that position.
Yeah.
You re-signed Danny Green. Okay, great, but he's only in a year older. Paul Reed seems to be like the biggest kind of swing factor rotation-wise.
Sure.
A really nice summer league, but like, okay, if the answer to your problems are Paul Reed, then you have the wrong problems. Look, if the roster stays the same, I'm losing $400, and I'm prepared. I'm prepared for that. This is only all the things you say are I agree 100% with. This is solely a bet on if they can get Damian Lillard, then I like the value of spending some money early to get in on these odds now before they change, if and when they get them.
So I like the idea where you kind of split that money between Philadelphia and Atlanta in the hopes that maybe they'll find some way of tying it together. But I'm also not a believer in Atlanta being able to duplicate last year's success. I'm totally out on the Knicks, by the way. I'm also out on the Bucks. I think the Knicks are fine. I also don't think they're going to get substantially better. I think they were able to really get a fantastic year out of Julius Randle, and I don't know how likely it is that they're going to get that out of him next season too. I don't know if the Evan Fournier addition is going to be, something that swings the favor, things in New York's favor there. So I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work out there.
You're not splitting your bet.
I am not. I am actually betting all $500 on the Boston Celtics.
Wow.
Boring.
Yeah.
Boring.
Shocked.
Yeah. Maybe addition by subtraction by getting Brad Stevens out from the sidelines there. I know that
you just. Oh, well, I like that. I like that take. I like the Brad Stevens is overrated take.
Fucking ass.
Yeah.
But you just somehow lost a lot of friends and gained one with John Corrales. I don't know if you wanted to.
Not particularly, but anyway, what I like about the changes, I think they're tying things together. I really just like their depth. I really do. I think they lose out on Kemba Walker, and for Knicks fans that love the idea, the narrative, from a narrative perspective, it's a great story. Kemba returning home, going to save the Madison Square Garden faithful, bringing everybody back to the Mecca, on and on and on, whatever. He's like, I love Kemba. I love watching Kemba when he's playing at his best. I just don't think he's going to be able to play anywhere near his best, and certainly not for a full regular season. So that's why I'm out on the Knicks. But as far as the Celtics are concerned, I think they just added a lot of nice depth. You look at their roster, they get Dennis Schroeder on a really great deal. They're able to get Robert Williams there. Maybe he can start. You get Al Horford back. I think he thrived in Atlanta. He's going to find a way to. And look, we're kind of overlooking the fact that maybe their best addition was the change in the head coach position. Not necessarily to knock Stevens, but just because it brings in something different, a new voice. And I am a big believer in what we saw from Nate McMillan last year, or even what you saw from Tom Thibodeau in New York. A new voice that can see something from an outsider's perspective, change the paradigm in Boston. They've been always this good and never good enough at the same time. And now you bring in a guy like Ime Udoka, and he's going to just change the culture there. I think he comes from a winning background. I think he understands these players. I think he knows how to get the most out of them, even though he's a first-year coach. That doesn't seem to matter anymore. Steve Kerr had success as a first-year coach. Steve Nash had success as a first-year coach, and on and on. It doesn't matter as much as it once did. And I think you got a guy like Udoka with these young players and older veterans that can accomplish a lot, that I think want an opportunity to prove that they can still play at a high level. And I think they're going to just find a way to tie it all together. I'm a believer in what the Celtics roster can do.
$500 in the Celtics. They have 16-1 odds. Look, I can't say you're wrong. I do like the difference. I like. It felt like they needed a refresh in the front office. You know, Danny Ainge out, Brad Stevens in. What he did to add Dennis Schroeder late. They also got a guy like Josh Richardson. They got a guy like Chris Dunn. To bring back Al Horford. It just feels like their rotations make a little bit more sense now. Marcus Smart, by the way, is on an expiring contract. He's somebody who could get traded potentially, especially with the Chris Dunn move. You kind of have like your poor man's Marcus Smart there if you're really looking for that kind of point of attack defender on the roster at some point. But maybe they can move Marcus Smart mid-season for to address an area of need. Maybe Josh Richardson can have a bounce back year after a tough one in Dallas.
I think he does.
And then obviously you've got Jason Tatum now with gold medal experience. Can he take yet another leap? I like you putting $500 on Boston and betting on all of those things happening. I am heartbroken that neither you nor I put any money on the Miami Heat, so I'm changing all of my stuff, putting $500 on Miami because one of us had to do it. All right, let's move to the Western Conference. Your $1,000 bet.
That's okay. I'm going to follow the same policy. What did break right for Milwaukee didn't break right for the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, but will this following season. Based on your answer to this one question, how good can Eric Pascal be as your backup center, your small ball center?
He could be pretty good for a few games, but he can't stay healthy the whole year.
All right, so you're not counting on him in the playoffs, and that's really the big issue, right? I think Utah is going to clearly be as good as they were last year, if not even just a little bit better. Just another opportunity for Donovan Mitchell to continue to expand his game. You get a little bit more guys like Conley. Maybe Gobert is a little upset about the loss in the Olympics, to the United States. I think he can look. It's a great team. I mean, I think it feels like I'm playing somewhat to most of our listener base here, but I really do think that the Utah Jazz is a great team built for the regular season. They've been able to accomplish a lot, and unfortunately, what happened to them in the playoffs was, one of your best players was just unplayable because he's just a liability out there offensively. But if you can get a guy like either Pascal or Gay, Rudy Gay, one of their big additions that kind of goes under the radar there, I think you've got a really much more well-rounded roster with a nice complement, again, of young players and veterans that know how to buy into Quinn Snyder's system. I really like what Utah built this offseason. So I'm going to take another bit of a gamble here and hope that the Jazz can somehow find a way to get a little bit better during the regular season and a lot better during the playoffs.
I like the moves that they made too. I think, look, they didn't have any wiggle room. They had nothing to do, right? This is a capped out team in a smaller market, not a whole lot of money to spend. But you go out and get a guy like Rudy Gay. You make a trade for Eric Pascal, who had moments in Golden State, right? And I think the Jazz in the past have made the most out of those tweener forward guys. If they can't teach Eric Pascal how to shoot, nobody can. And I think it's a nice buy low option. And I think there's another leap coming for Donovan Mitchell.
Yes. Does
it come this year? Does it come later? If it comes this year, it changes everything for Utah. It changes everything. And we see it every year in the playoffs. I'm not saying that Donovan Mitchell already isn't one of the best 15 players in the league. I just think the world of his ceiling. I think there's another. I think he can go from top 15 to top 10. I think that's his ceiling. And if he can make that sort of leap, then again, that changes everything for the Jazz.
I think he understands a little bit more what's at stake here. Like the fact that he didn't want to necessarily join Team USA, even though I think there was a spot available for him, kind of shifts his focus into I need to win. I need to win with Utah at a high level.
Does the fact that they signed Hassan Whiteside change your approach at all?
No, because I really don't think he's a factor in year 2021. I don't think he's the player he once believed he was in Miami. It could be disastrous, but I don't think Hassan is. I don't think he's good enough anymore to really be an issue. So I don't. I don't think his teammates really had a problem with him. Maybe Udonis Haslem did.
So you're putting your 1,000 on the Jazz.
I am.
On 8-1 odds, that's a really nice value play. I think that they are. This is a team that's had the best record in the Western Conference, or one of the two best records in the Western Conference. Several years in a row now. I don't know why their odds are so low. I guess it's just because there are huge questions in the playoffs. And
Conley's health,
Rudy Gobert, arguably your best player, definitely your highest paid player, is just general playability in the postseason. And I think there are teams.
Oh, fucking
like a lot of teams ahead of them that can just simply take advantage of that. And so I thought long and hard about Utah, but I don't put any of my bets on Utah. Not my
Good
thousand.
man.